it's titled venture debt, but in reality, it's investing in people. And so this is a new idea. This is basically an idea that I'm here to kind of explain to you and sell you that you probably haven't heard before, which is investing in people, letting people invest in others, similar to how people would invest in a corporation. So if you think about different types of people, entrepreneurs, athletes, makers, creators, podcast hosts, whatever, they typically need some initial capital to get started, whether that's 25,000, 50,000, 100,000. Lots of times this capital comes in from friends and family. In the case of a early stage venture, it comes in, as a safe or a convertible note. But there's many situations where there is no ability to put capital into the company. Maybe the company hasn't been formed yet. Maybe the company is pre-traction, pre-revenue, pre-MVP, or maybe there is no company. Maybe it's an individual that's trying to make the PGA Tour and they need capital to go tour, pay their tournament fees, travel, etc. And so what we've done is said, all right, well, how do you invest in that person directly? So if you think about a couple asset classes that you're probably familiar with, you've got venture capital on one side, very specific type of capital for high growth companies, grow fast, take all of the market. You're looking for a 10x plus return. So that's one side. On the other side, you have traditional credit. Not a lot of upside there, but pretty de-risked on the downside. You have a pretty steady return. What we've done is created an instrument that sits in between those two. It has elements of venture and equity. It also has elements of a debt-like return or a downside protection. That debt-like instrument is called an income share agreement. And so it basically says, you as an individual, think of it like revenue-based financing for an individual. You as an individual during your career are going to earn income. And so for us on this income share agreement, we will take a percentage of that income over time until an amount cap and a time cap. A couple different ways to structure that. But it's basically, again, investing in that person. Now, let me give you a couple examples of deals that we've done. And for my company, what we've done is we've started with the asset management. So we're raising funds, we're deploying capital. We're starting with entrepreneurs specifically, proving out the asset class, building returns before opening up the broader platform to athletes, creators, peer-to-peer investment using our convertible income share agreement terms. And so a couple of the early deals that we've done have been in technology companies, have been in food and beverage companies, have been in e-commerce companies, pretty industry agnostic. But what they all have in common is they have a founder who is a high potential earner in a good financial position, and their company is viable. It has some traction often, and there's a chance that it could be a very large return on the company side of things. Obviously, at the pre stage, it's very hard to know what are going to be the winners, what are going to be the losers. And so that's why we've come in with this instrument that says, all right, we're going to bet on you, the founder. We're going to underwrite you, the founder, understand your future earning potential, and sign an income share agreement with you. On the other side, you're building a company in this case. And so we're going to take some equity in that company. So for us as the investor, we hold equity in the company. Should that company really take off? Great. We're a very early investor at a very attractive valuation. Should that company fail, we still hold the income share agreement with the individual. We're literally invested in that person, looking to help them find their next job, grow in their career, start their next company, what have you. We're still going to earn a return from that income share agreement. So again, an example of a deal, 3D animation SaaS platform out of California. This individual came to us, said, hey, I need $50,000 to extend my runway for 5 months. We're going to launch our platform. In the next 5 months, we're going to be in the Adobe App Store, all this good stuff. That $50,000 will basically bridge us to our seed, where we'll raise our next, larger round of capital from institutions. We underwrote that individual, who was a previous exec at Nickelodeon, knew the space very well, a high earner, kind of a no-brainer for us. So we made that investment. We're invested in him. We own equity in the company, and we'll see how it plays out here in the next couple of months. But presumably, he's going to raise that next round of capital, take out a majority of our equity position. We'll still hold a residual piece, and then we'll be invested in him no matter what happens with the company or his career. So these instruments, the income share agreement, they're about 12 to 15% returning instruments. The equity, again, it's very early stage equity, kind of an unknown, but we're modeling about another 1x on top of the income share agreements to get a target return of about 20 to 25% on a total portfolio of these types of instruments. One example that I kind of like to put out there is another early investment we made. This was a tournament fishing app. We liked the idea. What ended up happening was we made the investment, $45,000. 9 months later, founder came to us and said, "Hey, this isn't going to work. I'm going to shut down the company. This isn't going to work." Obviously, equity goes to zero, kind of a bummer. But our underwriting on the individual was sound. That individual, six-figure earner, he's now gotten a job, earning six figures. He's paying us back within 15 months. That's probably going to be about a 14% return, even though the company failed. So again, we started with asset management. We're currently raising a fund too. That's a $5 million target. That'll be about 250 investments in that portfolio. But the platform that we're building here is kind of the large opportunity, which says this idea of a convertible income share agreement is extremely broad and extremely applicable globally for individuals that need capital. And so starting with entrepreneurs, but we're looking at athletes, makers, creators, artists, all as individuals in their own right that need that capital. Secondly, on the platform side, we are building out the software solution so that we don't have to be the capital bottleneck. Like I said, we'll be raising funds, deploying capital, earning a return for LPs in those funds. But as we have built the technology for ourselves, we are opening that technology up to other individuals to say, "Hey, I'm an artist or I'm a podcaster. I need $10,000 to pay a video production editor, what have you." I'm going to go out to my network and tell them, "Hey, don't invest in this podcast. Maybe that works, maybe it doesn't, kind of risky. Invest in me and my future earning potential." And we can facilitate those investments, sit in the middle, provide the documents, and then obviously kind of take a fee and look at the data across all of these investments that occur on our platform, which then that data kind of feeds into our asset management business and helps improve our algorithms on the underwriting side of things. Do you have a question?
There was a couple of questions from the audience. Do you see them on? Are you looking at the Zoom?
I'm not logged in. No.
Okay, so that question was, how much personal income is the founder typically giving up, and over how many years?
Sure. So 10% is the typical income share percentage. That 10% we're underwriting to return a 2x in about 6 years. But those agreements can go up to 120 months of payments or 10 years.
And can they prepay?
They can. So if you prepay within 5 years, that 2x cap can come down to a 1.5x cap. So there's a few different ways to prepay. Some track record information.
I just had a question. You said a $5 million fund, 250 deals. What's the team look like that can underwrite 250 deals?
Yeah, so it's very technology based. And so we have quite a bit of automation up front. We have an open online application. We get financial information. We get pitch decks. We get a number of data points on the individual that basically run through automation underwriting in the beginning. So it automatically weeds out low credit scores, low income levels, etc. There is some manual review and diligence on the company side of things. But our theory is that at the very, very beginning, we're just looking to make sure that the company is viable. We're making sure that they've thought through their customer, the go-to-market strategy, some of the basic things. But if the company is viable and they check our boxes on the founder side of things, income levels, etc., then we'll make that investment.
Two questions. What's your default rate? And also, do you only take the earnings as security, or you ask for an asset as well behind the loan?
So today, we don't ask for an asset. It's just the future earnings that is the collateral there.
So that's, in a sense, you're speculating on their earnings capacity too.
Yes.
All right.
Yep, that's part of our.
So then what's the default?
So the default, today we haven't had any defaults. In the income share agreement space, the defaults are low. I would say data is still early because income share agreements, which have mainly been used in the education space, have been used at scale for about 5-ish years. The data that I've seen, the defaults are lower than traditional student loans because a default in this context is not, I can't afford to pay, because if you're not making money, you don't owe anything. It's that income share. So obviously you pay more as your income goes up, you pay less as your income goes down. If you're not making money, you're not paying. And so the default is you run off to another country, or we never hear from you. And while a possibility, there's a number of steps that we're taking to mitigate that risk.
With the income share, does the money go to the CEO or the entrepreneur and then they pay you, or do you take it directly out of income coming?
So it is up to the entrepreneur in this case. So we basically say the payment that is due is based on your personal income. That is how we calculate the payment. Now, if you want the company to make that payment, you can. Or in the case where the company has failed or the person has moved on, then they make that payment personally. So the payment can come from multiple lines.
I'm just saying from a tax perspective, I guess.
Yeah. So again, it depends on how the entrepreneur structures it. They can structure it as, hey, the money comes into themselves and then they loan it to the company, and then there's kind of the unwinding of that loan. But yeah, I can talk to you offline on that.
Yeah.
There's a couple different ways to structure
Is
it.
the interest tax deductible to the borrower?
So since there is no interest, there's no tax deductibility. It's not technically considered a loan. It is a financial contract. And so that payment is not tax deductible.
Does it effectively reduce their income? Sorry.
No, it does not. So it not the most tax efficient to the actual person that's receiving the investment. Now, on the flip side of that, to the investor, this is open transaction. So the first 1x return of principal to the investor is actually return of principal, and everything past that is ordinary gain.
Another online question. So how do you deal with enforcement or prioritization over potential future obligations such as alimony or child support?
So we actually have contracted with a third-party ISA servicer. So early on, we realized, hey, our business is in finding, sourcing, underwriting, and investing in good people and good deals. There are multiple income share agreement servicers out there that handle compliance, enforcement, monitoring, all of that good stuff. So our servicer is a company called Meritas. They handle all of our ISAs. They handle the monitoring of income, processing and payments, compliance, enforcement, and everything.
Is it just income for that one project? Let's say that they have multiple income streams, that they're an entrepreneur and then they also have, they collect real estate or they have, a trust or something that comes in. Like, how do you, is there any way that you can also, I'm just trying to look at it from your perspective, how do you protect yourself from this, an entrepreneur, not being straightforward?
Yes, so there is a definition of earned income in our contracts that basically walks through a number of the line items on a Form 1040. Says, hey, this is included, this is included, this is included, and maybe this isn't. So we've kind of done our best to say, hey, here are the big buckets. Things like alimony we're not including, other things that don't really make sense as part of that person's earned income. But at the end of the day, if this person says, in our case, our salary floor is $40,000. So if this person says, hey, I'm going to go earn $39,000 for the next 10 years, they would legally owe us nothing, and that contract would be complete. And so that's why we spend a lot of time underwriting that individual and understanding their future earning potential by looking at their previous income levels, by looking at their career path and what their employability looks like.
What's the average income of the entrepreneurs that you are?
Yeah, it's somewhere 90 to 100,000. So it's on the higher range in terms of the median income levels.
And what's the average investment, like personal?
$40,000.
$40,000.
Yeah, is about the average.
Is the CEO also investing as well, or are they? Is there like investment giving up 10% of their?
No, they're also investing. And we do look for that skin in the game. Obviously, some founders don't always have the capital to put in, especially if they're early in their career. But we're looking for, hey, what have you given up? How are you aligned, and what skin do you have in the game? Even if that's a couple thousand, and even if they've gotten their friends and family to put in a couple other thousand, we like that incentive or that alignment of interests.
You take a board or advisory role?
We have a board observer right. We have not exercised it. Our position is, let's make this investment and support you as best as possible, but you run your business. And so we're more like, a coach versus a enforcer. Now we have the right to the board observer role in case communications start to go wrong. Then we can say, hey, look, contractually, we do have this board observer right. We do need to see your books. We do need to step in. But like I said, we've not had to enforce that yet.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Exactly. When you invest in the entrepreneur and you set up your contract, do you also ensure that that entrepreneur is going to have proper accounting and stuff? Because I know that I deal with a lot of emerging companies, and many times everything's it's not as organized as a public company.
Yeah, no, they're often, not organized.
So what do you do to make sure that everything is running smoothly and that all the numbers are in order, and they have to report to you quarterly or?
Again, we have information rights, so we do ask for updates on a monthly or quarterly basis. We don't require any type of accounting setup or specific reporting. Again, our view is, hey, our equity is, these are super early companies, so our equity is at a very risky position. If the company does raise the next round, then that next investor who is purely investing in the equity, they don't have that downside protection like we do. They'll be the ones to bring the enforcement to the table, and then we'll just be riding along as kind of that early equity investor. Our real protection is on that income of that individual.
How big was the first fund?
It was a $500,000 pilot fund.
And then you said you're doing a $5 million raise. If someone gives you $1 million, do they have you said there's 250 companies. You have the ability to say, if I gave you $1 million and said, I only want to go with that golfer and I want to go with that guy, or are you automatically in those 250 companies?
Yeah, so right now it's all a blind pool. It's all in the same fund.
Gotcha. And just an aside, so on a golfer, he goes and wins the Masters, you get 10% of his winnings?
So since we haven't done those, we don't have an example, but our thinking around it is defining that earned income as sports related and saying, hey, maybe our income share agreement looks a little bit different, but your earned income will tag it to sponsorships or tournament purses, etc.
Why limit it at that? Why can't you go after college athletes or something like promotion of their personal brands?
You absolutely can.
So
Name, image, and likeness, money to get their brand up and running, run a YouTube channel.
I guess the question was, what's the capacity of your strategy?
Yeah, so we think we can deploy $25-30 million a year right now. Obviously, we can grow the team, but we have such an automated sourcing, underwriting, and investment strategy that, we think there's decent capacity right now.
Can people apply like over a portal, or how do they get into you, or have they know about you?
All online, and our sourcing strategy is twofold. So we are out there putting information out into the world, podcasts, webinars, social media, etc. But we're also sourcing through partnerships. So accelerators, incubators, other VCs, anyone who sees early stage deals, it's a very easy sell to say, hey, you see early stage deals, tons are going to be too early for you or not a good fit for you. You can be helpful and say, hey, go look at Chisos as a potential capital partner. And then on the flip side, since we see a lot of deals, we can be a kind of reverse deal flow partner.
What's your website?
Chisos.io, not the boot company.
Yeah,
5 more minutes.
Do you have any geographic?
The United States. So the founder has to be a US citizen and a US based company. And again, that's for our fund investments. And that's kind of why we're looking for building out the platform so that it can be more self-serve and so that it can serve a global audience.
Yeah, I know there's more questions, but it actually is pretty. If somebody's an entrepreneur who's got $50,000 saved up from like a computer programming job over 2 or 3 years and borrowed $50,000, $100,000 is not bad to be able to get some kind of an MVP up and running or
especially
To be able
today.
to start talking to people, right?
Especially today. It has never been easier, cheaper, faster to start a company and get an MVP out the door and validate an idea. And so with the rise of no code tools, even if you don't have a programming background or a computer science background, you can use these no code tools and spin up some software to go out and validate an idea, easily with $100,000. And then that validation leverages you into either your pre-seed round, or more and more often today, companies are starting to bootstrap more. They're saying, we don't want the venture capital jet fuel. We want to build a profitable business, maybe at a little bit slower growth rate, and own most of it instead of diluting ourselves down over 5 rounds of venture capital.
In certain instances, why wouldn't you make the whole transaction a note? So that there is an obligation for the payer, and a stipulation on what they would owe you, but that you could use income as an alternative revenue stream in case the note holder wants to use it that way. In other words, see what I'm saying? So you would have, so they could take a write-off on the interest and what they're paying you. At the same time, you have extra security.
Mhm. There are some groups that are playing with income-based repayment notes, similar to like a federal student loan. They have some of those programs. And it is a potential pathway for us. But the way that we've kind of set it up is kind of how our lawyers have said, hey, for what you're doing, investing in individuals that are starting companies, getting equity in their business, and taking this income share agreement, like this, in their opinion, is the best way to set it up. But it's not the only way.
To your point, the individual concern is kind of encouraged that if he was to hit the wall, he wouldn't know you're in. So that's a better thing to have for him than an obligation that continues, even if he doesn't towards it, go off his assets or whatever.
It is, and then it's a matter of
So it's a marketing
marketing, but also how do you get individuals to take our capital? There's got to be kind of a give and take. And so the way we've designed it is, hey, we're going to earn a fair return, potentially a great return if the company actually succeeds. But it's also got some founder friendly features to where they have an interest in actually taking that capital and accepting that capital, allowing us to get into better deals.
What's your targeted net return for your investment?
So net return on the fund is going to be about 20%. And it's a 10-year fund life. I can share all that. And that I'll add on that. So unlike venture, where you put your money in, often it's locked up for 7 to 10 years, and then maybe you get some payouts at the end. We're actually earning cash flow from day one. And so day one, a portion of our portfolio will be making income share agreement payments. We'll be earning cash flow, and our current policy is to distribute all of that cash flow back to investors. So for our first fund, we made our first distribution of 5% of capital back in 6 months. 6 months later, 4%, and then next month we'll probably make another 5% distribution.
That's before you earn any fees.
That is after fees. That is cash back to the investor.
Can an investor just choose to reinvest their assets, kind of like a dividend, so that they don't have the tax consequences?
Not in our current structure, but like I mentioned before, that first 1x return of principal is not taxable. It's return of principal.
Do you also have an intranet for investors to go so you can see all of the investments that you're looking at, or the ones that you're invested in?
We have some portals that we share with our LPs upon request.
Got a couple of minutes?
Perfect. Yeah. So like I said, we've been doing this for 2 years now. We've made about 30 investments. We've deployed about $1 million. We've collected over $100,000 in income share agreement payments. And we currently have 4 equity markups. So the strategy is working. It's now putting more money through the strategy. It's now raising capital and deploying it. And then secondarily, opening up that platform